Today's sponsor is Advancement Courses. Stay tuned at the end of the show for a special coupon for 20% off any of their grad level professional development courses. This episode 377 is a special episode. We have been hit by Hurricane Michael here in South Georgia and in Florida. We don't have power, we don't have a lot, but I wanted to do an episode about what technology you need when there's no technology. Now, I would actually tell you, I think this is one of the most important episodes I've ever recorded just because it's from within the storm. We still don't have power. We still don't have a lot of things. But I just feel this huge need to share this out so that you'll know the kinds of things that we do need to be teaching our children and that we do need to be talking. I think actually we need to be teaching in school so that kids can be safe and families can be safe into the future. Our biggest risk sometimes is not knowing what to do when we don't have technology. So here you go, episode 377, the technology you need when there is no technology.
The 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with Vicki Davis. Every weekday, you'll learn powerful, practical ways to be a more remarkable teacher today.
Dear friends, this is not your typical EdTech Tool Tuesday. I am recording this from a disaster area. I don't know, 150, 200 miles wide. We can't really get the news here. But I'm in Camilla, Georgia, and we were on the east side of the storm, and you can hear the background noise of the chainsaws, perhaps, in this. And so today, I actually want to do an EdTech Tool Tuesday about what to do when you don't have technology. What's the technology you need when you don't have it? Now, I was talking with our school chaplain, Jeremy Davidson, about this a while ago, and I said, you know, the thing is, I want kids to know how to use technology, but the one thing that has me very concerned about technology is that kids don't know how to live without it. Literally, they don't know how to live without it. Now, my friend Lisa Logan up in Albany made a comment when I could get on Facebook that kids were playing Red Rover, and she thought tag was the next game up. So there are some good things, I guess, that happen when you don't have power, that the kids actually get out and connect and play with each other in new ways. But this is a very serious disaster unfolding, and I don't think it's over quite yet. We're certainly not the worst off. This is a Sunday when I'm recording it, and we have no power. You could ask, how am I recording this? Well, we actually traveled up to Atlanta to get generators for my husband's work, and his brother, Mark, loaned him a generator for our house, which we run 2 times a day. I have actually come down with either the flu or a cold on top of all of this. I pulled logs and didn't tell anybody yesterday that I was running fever, and so I have made myself even sicker. So, but there are still people a lot worse off than we are. We are hauling water, so we have no power, no water, no internet. I'll have to go into town, and we actually have no cell service, so I'll have to go somewhere where I can find internet to even be able to upload this, and we're just going to do our best. So as we were in the car driving to Atlanta to get the generators, Kip and I made a list of the technologies that we need when we don't have technology. Now, number 1 on our list is actually our Dynamo hand crank radio. This thing has been indispensable. We were able to get news throughout the whole disaster, and I think that's one of the hardest things is knowing, you know, where is it? And we lost power, we lost cell service, we lost everything. We didn't know where the eye was or anything, and so we were texting our children, and then Kip had on the hand crank radio, and it needed 1 battery, I think, for the light, but you just crank it up, and it just tunes in, and I am so grateful that some of the radio stations banded together down here and broadcast disaster news that night, and I cannot tell you what that means. I know that the local TV stations really tried to do a lot, but they couldn't understand that we couldn't get their app. We couldn't see any of their stuff. And I truly wish the TV stations had broadcast on radio, but they didn't. We have a gas grill that's also a charcoal grill, and it also has a side burner. And we have these cast iron pots, and we have a lid with a Dutch oven. And I'm going to tell you that has helped us so much. When we knew we were going to lose everything in our refrigerator, we scrambled 1.5 dozen eggs in a big cast iron pot on that burner. And then we had Kip's Pioneer percolating coffee pot. And I thought I was going to cry when I had coffee the second day when we found that pot, because we knew we had it somewhere and we'd never used it. We always keep an extra tank of propane. So we don't wait till we're out to buy new. We always keep an extra propane tank, and that was a really smart thing to do. Now, the only problem when you cook with these is that this stuff gets really, really hot. And we have these two plastic arm length, I think they're neoprene. I'm not sure what they are, but I got them from Walmart, and they're long plastic gloves that let you take the stuff off of the grill. Now, I'm telling you all this because not only do you need to get these items, but you need to teach your kids how to deal with these items. Now, the other thing that was really, really helpful are these hot cold lunch boxes that we have, because I'm truly starting to understand what it's like. I don't know that I could ever understand what it was like to be a pioneer, but the way that we've pretty much run is we cook everything for breakfast and lunch in the morning, and then we put them in these hot cold lunch boxes if we're going to eat them. And now we're down to sandwiches and bars and stuff. But fortunately, Walmart opened yesterday, and we could at least get bread, even though there's not much in there, but water, bread, and that sort of thing. Aluminum foil and aluminum pans are really, really helpful also to have. So you definitely want to have those. Now, the other thing that Kip had gotten a while back were these LED flashlights with a belt clip. And it's just a little hook. And you're going to laugh, but we actually would walk around the house with those hooked onto our belts so we could turn on the flashlight anytime we needed to. And those are very helpful. Now, he also has these 30-day LED light hanging devices that will run on for 30 days with one D-cell battery. And he's hung those in the kitchen when I was cooking or when I needed it before we had the generator. It was just so very helpful. Having enough chargers is a really big deal. If a storm is coming, you want to have all your chargers going. Now, speaking of chargers, one big thing that you need to understand when you have some sort of disaster like this is it's not the time to get mad at people for not responding to your text, because I'll tell you this, a whole bunch of texts did not come in, and we did not know people were trying to check on us. And we actually had some people get upset because we didn't respond, and we couldn't respond because we weren't getting and sending. We couldn't do anything. It was really just a mess. Now, in this case, I have an iPhone, so you want to teach your kids and everybody you know how to swap from iMessage to SMS. So you go into your settings and you go down to messages and you turn off iMessage. That makes everything go to standard messaging service. Now, if anything will get through, even before phone calls, SMS will get through. So you definitely want to make sure that if you have an iPhone, you know how to switch to SMS. If you have an Android, if it has that feature, you want to know how to do that too. You also want to have adapters for your car. We have a nice little adapter that's a 2 amp and a 1 amp, but I will give you a warning that if you use the 2 amp on your phone too much, it will give it a very, very quick charge in an emergency. But if you use it too much, it will actually fry your battery. So you can have that and you need it, and it's for emergencies. There are some devices that'll do pretty well with a 2 amp booster, but just be aware of that. Now, the other thing is you want to fill up your bathtubs and then make sure it seals. And what I would suggest you do with your family is to actually have a dry run of this and say, okay, we're going to pretend like it's a disaster, and we're going to flush our toilets tomorrow like we would if it was a disaster. And you want to have, some 5-gallon buckets or some large buckets, and you fill up your bathtubs. Now, the reason I say make sure it seals is that I did not realize that the bathroom in my master bathroom, that bathtub didn't seal. So we had 2 bathtubs full of water. When we got up the next morning, only one was full and the other had drained out, and I was not a happy camper. But then, of course, what you want to know is to get that bucket, and then you take the back of the toilet off. Now, the new toilets only require 1.5 gallons to flush them. So you pour it in that back end until the little rubber part is floating. And then when it's floating, then you can flush the toilet. What I would suggest that you do, and this is very unpleasant conversation, but you have to have it, is that you pick one family toilet that you're going to use in case of the power going out, and that you flush intermittently through the day. And just take that as you will, but you want to keep it one separate bathroom that everybody's not using all the time to brush their teeth and that sort of thing. So the old toilets require 3.5 gallons. And so I was really glad that Kip had swapped all of our toilets to the newer 1.5 gallons, especially in the case of this disaster. So you do want your children to know how to flush the toilet in case of having a power outage. From what I have read, I've read Terry Blackstock's book, Last Light, and then there's another book called 1 Second After, I believe is the name of the book. And those two books talk about what would happen in the case of an EMP, or electromagnetic pulse, going out, which would cause massive power outages and basically fry all of our electronics and put you in a circumstance where we are, except far worse. And one of the first things that happens is people don't know how to flush their toilets, and so they have sewage overruns and illness that happens as a result of it, and really bad things happen. So please make sure your kids know how to flush their toilet in the case of an emergency. And this is the technology that really, really counts in the end. Now, you also want to make sure that you do have a chainsaw that runs, particularly if you have trees around, and 2-cycle oil and work gloves. So we actually stocked up on all of this during Irma. Hurricane Irma did not really happen as bad as it was supposed to here, but it ended up being a great blessing because we had some tarps we could give our neighbors. We had stocked up on a lot of things that we still had, and we were able to help a lot of people because we had stocked up for Irma. And we're going to go back to the store and get tarps and more chainsaw 2-cycle oil and all that sort of thing. Now, you do need extra water, or 3 liters of water per day per person. And we've gotten to where we keep extra water at the house, and we're going to be even more vigilant about that as well. Now, every one of our sinks, we not only have dishwasher detergent, but we also have hand sanitizer. And there is a time when you have to just use that, because you can boil water if you're able, but even if you are able, there's just not enough water to make sure that you're sanitary. And that's just something you need. Of course, you need a lot of batteries. Kip keeps that, and a lot of paper towels and bleach and vinegar. And these are the things for those of you who will make sure that you keep your kitchen clean. I have been extra vigilant. You do not want to have any dishes at all, especially if you don't have power, that are not cleaned, because if you have your doors open, you could attract flies, and then you're just going to end up with a very unsanitary circumstance there. So our house is real clean and sanitary in that way right now, which is great. Now, this sounds silly, but 4-way stops. If you can really drill in the head of kids how to handle 4-way stops, and I sure wish that somebody would create some kind of VR simulator so people could practice 4-way stops, because that has been the most dangerous thing about this disaster, has actually been the people that do not know how to do a 4-way stop. It is unbelievable, and it is very stressful to drive and go to try to get supplies when people don't know how to handle a 4-way stop at major intersections. And when I say major, I'm talking like interstates and just these huge intersections that really can turn into a disaster very quickly. Now, we have one piece of technology that failed on us, but we bought it a long time ago. We're going to buy another one, a solar charger for the iPhone. It would be great if it worked, but our old Solio did not work, and it was admittedly a lot older. And I've heard that the technology is a lot better now. So we're going to get solar chargers for all of our devices. Do remember that if you are listening to any kind of storm coverage or news on your iPhone, that external speakers take a lot of battery. You're really better off, if you're in those circumstances, to listen on your earbuds and let somebody else listen on the earbuds, or plug it into one of those external speakers, and it'll run off of the speaker of the external battery, and it won't take so much battery out of your iPhone. Of course, I will say that I have been pretty disgusted because I think it's been about 6 or 9 months ago, maybe a year, there was an iOS update that literally cut my battery life in half. And because I have an older iPhone 6, and I can't believe I could say it's older because it still feels new to me. And not having battery is really a life or death issue. And so much of my time has been spent dealing with chargers and having, charging all of the chargers and then charging my phone. If I have to constantly use my phone throughout the day, it takes me 2 chargers a day plus the battery on my phone, which is really very, very dangerous. So I hope these tech companies will understand when they cut battery life, it can be life or death. And, my thought is, our house didn't have damage, but if you can imagine somebody in a damaged house trying to get a message out and what that would mean. This really struck me because when I flew back from Russia, it was a flight from Paris to Atlanta, and I decided to listen to music on my phone for a while as I was doing some writing. And I literally listened to music for about 4 or 5 hours, and my battery only went down like 4 percentage points on my iPhone, because I was in airplane mode. It wasn't hitting Wi-Fi, and it wasn't hitting all that data. So I think that the battery is there. It's just how it's being used and all the background refreshes and such. Now, on your phone, one thing that really can help your battery life is to turn off data and only use what you need. So when I'm not using my phone, I put it in airplane mode, and then I go into cellular data and only turn on what I need, and then I turn off background refresh, turn off Wi-Fi, turn off Bluetooth. If you don't have Wi-Fi and you don't have anything Bluetooth, it's just going to suck your battery as well. I think that, and there's so much other things I could tell you about this, but I think that one thing that's important is our pastor had mentioned something about Nehemiah, and he rebuilt the wall in the Old Testament, and he had asked the king if he could get help. And what our pastor said was that if you don't ask, the answer is always no. That is just so very true. Pastor Michael Catt is right about that if you don't ask, the answer is always no. And so, for example, we were clearing our driveway and we couldn't get out of our driveway, and some DOT people were there, and they were trying to clear the road, and our driveway actually would give a way for all of our neighbors to get out too, because they couldn't get out. So there were about 18 people behind us that could get out through our driveway if we could open our driveway. And so they weren't really in the business of clearing driveways. And we said, well, these big logs, and they're too big for all of us, and could you help us clear this driveway so that people can get out? And they kind of looked at us, and then they said, yeah, we'll clear this driveway and help you get out, because there was a big phone cable. It looked like a power cable. They actually called somebody over and they said, okay, what is this cable? And they said, okay, it's a phone cable. You're okay. And so because we asked, we were able to get out. If we hadn't been able to get out, we couldn't have gotten the generator. We couldn't have gotten water. I mean, there's so many things we could not have gotten if we didn't just ask. So I really hope that this sort of thing never happens to any of you guys out there. But I do hope that this much longer EdTech Tool Tuesday gets listened to just for the safety of your family. I've never seen anything like this in my entire life, and it's not just my own personal situation. It's the situation of all of my neighbors, the devastation of losing whole cotton crops and pecan groves that will be impacted for years, and homes destroyed. And I've never seen anything like this. I've seen we had 3 tornadoes that went through our little town and destroyed 250 homes back in February 14th, year 2000. And Kip and I led the disaster recovery effort. And some people on this one are saying, well, why aren't more people coming to help? Well, that's because everybody needs help. So, and if people come in, you have to bring your own food and your own water. You can't count on the fact that there's a restaurant. It's going to be there. It's getting a little bit better, but even getting gas is a challenge. So, if you come in, bring all of these things. I'm just going to tell you there's a whole lot of need, and I've heard on our hand crank radio that it's so much worse in Florida, that there's people trapped in homes, and my heart is just broken for this, I think, about 250-mile swath of just devastated. If you could imagine a 200-mile wide tornado, that is pretty much what it looks like here. And we're pulling together. In our family, we serve an awesome God. He's all the power we need, even when we don't have power, electricity power. He's helped us through, but this has certainly been difficult, and I hope that you will donate. There's 3 places I always like to recommend because I just see them here so much. Samaritan's Purse was one of the first ones to get set up. They're a great place to donate. That's Will Graham, and I may actually be Franklin Graham. Billy Graham's son runs it. And then there is the Salvation Army. They have done so much. And then the Baptist Disaster Relief, they are always here and doing things. So those are 3 organizations that I just see on the ground doing so much, and I recommend donating to them because they have very low administrative costs, and the funds actually go to where they need to be. if you know families, you could create a GoFundMe for them, but there's just so much need right now. I'll let you know if there are some schools and some school children that need help, because I know they're going to be. Right now, we don't know when we're going to go back to school because a lot of the schools still don't have power. And if they had power, we don't have food delivery. We don't have anything. But I will tell you what we do have. The day of the hurricane, I got a notice about 1 o'clock that afternoon that a package from Amazon had been delivered. Now, it was in my mailbox, and I couldn't go out and get it in those 70-mile-an-hour winds. But then Friday, I also had another package delivered from Amazon. So it seems like maybe I should have ordered all of my water and the stuff I needed from Amazon, because it looks like that even when nothing else gets through, that Amazon tends to. So I do find that a little bit humorous. So think about us, pray for us, and know that there are a whole lot of people who are so much worse off than I am. And this is going to be a disaster that is going to last for quite some time. Please don't let it be reality TV for you. I know yesterday I was out in the yard working. I had fever. I hadn't told my family I had fever. I was out in the yard working, and people were driving by filming me working, because my yard is a complete and utter disaster and it looks terrible. And they were filming me working, able-bodied people. You know, I'm concerned sometimes that we've become a drive-by society, a society that just drives by and doesn't stop and help. So I hope that you'll be a stop and help kind of person. There's other places. There are people still recovering from Florence. There's people still recovering from wildfires. There are people recovering from so many disasters that have been happening lately, and we just need to be helpful and know that sometimes just showing up and showing them that we care means more than anything.
Need some great professional development? Today's sponsor, Advancement Courses, has more than 200 graduate-level online professional development courses for K-12 teachers. You can take these courses for continuing education, salary advancement, or recertification. And these courses have us teachers developing tangible resources to use in our classrooms immediately. Go now to advancementcourses.com/coolcat and use the code COOL20 at checkout to get 20% off any course. With this coupon, a 3 grad credit course is only $359. So go to advancementcourses.com/coolcat to learn more and use the coupon code COOL20. Never stop learning. Thank you for listening to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. You can download the show notes and see the archive at coolcatteacher.com/podcast. Never stop learning.